In this lesson, we will look at how to build out our intents. So, in the last one, we left off with this question. When the user says, what is the radius of Saturn? It went to the default fallback intent. That is, the user's phrase was mapped to the default fallback intent. And of course, that's because we have not declared any intents which can handle this question that the user is asking. Now, let's take a small detour here because this is very important. The way that Dialogflow works and any other bot frameworks as of today is it's going to look at this user says text message, and sometimes it can be like a voice input, but ultimately that's also converted to text before this happens. And it's going to take this text message and it's going to try and analyze the pattern that Dialogflow sees in this message. And what it's going to do after that is it's going to take a look at all the intents that we have already declared. And right now we have only 2, but you could have actually you can have a lot. I think it's about 2,000 intents or so per agent. And it's going to look at all these intents and it's going to say, what is the closest intent? Which of these intents that the user has already defined is the closest in terms of the pattern for what the user has said over here? And that's effectively all that Dialogflow does, which is still, it's very powerful. But the reason that I mention this is sometimes people seem to think that Dialogflow is capable of learning stuff by itself. Like, in other words, just by me saying what is the radius of Saturn, and let's say that I actually declare an intent to do that, doesn't mean that Dialogflow will be able to then also give an answer for what is the color of Saturn. And the reason for that is we don't have an intent which can handle the user asking the question about the color of Saturn. Another way to put it is Dialogflow can only work with what the user has already defined, and the more you want your chatbot, the smarter you want your bot to be, the more work you need to do. And there isn't really any option or any way to avoid that. And that's my quick detour, just to point out that all the stuff that you do here is a result of your own input and your own efforts. It's not quite like there isn't anything like super intelligent about these chatbots, at least in my view. So let's get back to the topic at hand. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to create an intent which can handle this very question. So the question is, user asks for radius of Saturn, and you will add a training phrase. Let's just add the same one. What is the radius of Saturn? And I'll also have a few more, like tell me the radius of Saturn, or give me the radius of Saturn. Now, the reason that I'm declaring multiple training phrases here is I'm giving a lot of hints to Dialogflow so that if the user comes up with some variant of these questions, it is still able to understand that this is the intent that has to be fired. This is the intent that has to fire. And as a response, for now, I'm just simply going to say, I'm kind of going to echo back what the user said. You asked for the radius of Saturn. Now, when I first introduced this bot, I said that we will be answering this question. That is, if you expect it to come back with a number, right? But for now, I'm just going to keep it very simple. And you will see why, because at the moment, we don't want to get too deep into the other concepts of Dialogflow, because isolating these individual behaviors will give you a really good understanding of what is going on. And then once you master that, you can build on top of it and move on to the more advanced concepts. So For now, all that the bot does is it understands what the user asks, and instead of giving the actual answer to the question, it just acknowledges, it's sort of an acknowledgement that it understood what the user has asked here. So with this, let's go ahead and save this intent here, and you have to wait for a couple of seconds. You can see that as soon as you save it, you see it starts training the agent, and then you'll see in a minute that it will actually say that the training has been completed. And you have to wait for the agent training completed message to pop up over here, because that's the indication that it's ready to accept that phrase, so that it will be able to actually do that mapping. So let's just wait for a couple of seconds for it to finish the training. It's completed.